Last week, an AI expert, someone who's actually building the systems we're all using, contacted us urgently to request our help in preparing him and his family for situations that he is very fearful of. We decided we needed to know more. Hey, Provident Preppers, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Kylene. Last week, we were contacted by a very well-known AI expert asking us for a consultation because he is terrified of what's coming. Now, before you ask, he's requested anonymity, and so we won't be using his name. But it definitely got us thinking, because here is a person who does this for a living, and he is urgently wanting to take time to prepare his family immediately for what he sees in the future.
So if someone who knows this stuff, AI, better than 99.999% of all the people on the planet, we probably should listen.
So let's dive in. Now, I had to do a lot of research first, right? And so what we've done is we have created a comprehensive AI risk assessment and mitigation guide, because we need to know what it is that we're facing. So I went and I researched with 3 different AIs, and then I combined all 3 of those answers and what they thought was coming into one. Now you've got to take it, this is AI, we're preparing against AI, and this is AI that we're asking, but it is a very valuable tool. The risk assessment that we're going to do this general today. It's going to be a little bit longer of a video out of necessity, and we're going to go through these step by step. But then Jonathan and I feel like it's really important to create separate videos talking about each area of preparation, and for our anonymous friend, what we are doing with him and his family. We will be using that as a basis for these videos so that you will be receiving this very similar information to what he is receiving. So first of all, we're going to start with an executive risk summary. So there's a probability assessment for the next 12 months. And since you're the numbers guy, why don't you share all the numbers with them?
Okay, let's jump into this. And I'm going to say right up front here, our first discussion with him, I was like, this guy is way overblowing this. This can't be that severe.
A little over the top.
But he's the guy that knows, and the more we've learned, the more we've figured out that he may be on to some things here that we need to discuss. So let's talk about this. Let's jump in with the executive risk summary. Probable assessment for the next 12 months. AI enhanced cyberattacks. That one's listed as high, 60 to 80% chance. Social disruption and misinformation, also high at 40 to 70% chance. Economic displacement, medium high, 30 to 50%. And I think that one's probably wrong, because I already know people who have lost their jobs because of AI. There's just not a need for programmers or engineers in certain callings because AI takes care of it. Infrastructure attacks, medium risk, they're saying 10 to 25%. Biological weapon development, that one's low to medium, 5 to 15% chance. Nuclear, grid collapse, low, 1 to 5%. And an existential AI risk, very low at this point, saying less than 1% chance in the next year, 10 to 20% in the long term. So that gives us an idea of some of the things that maybe we need to be concerned about.
So we're going to go through these specifically. We're going to discuss the core risk categories and what the risk is, the risk level, and then what we can do to mitigate those risks. So the first category is the malicious use and cyber threats. That risk is high, and it has an immediate impact.
The specific threats include AI-powered deepfake scams targeting individuals and families, and we know these are already happening. Enhanced phishing and financial fraud. Misinformation campaigns affecting public health and safety decisions. AI-assisted bioweapons development, and privacy violations through AI surveillance.
So what we can do to mitigate that, which I think as preppers, the mitigation is the most important thing. We identify the risks, and then we take steps to mitigate them.
Because we can't control the threats very much. we can control our reaction to those threats and what we do to help prepare for those. So that's why we want to focus most of our attention on mitigation.
So the first thing we can do with digital security, we want to use two-factor authentication and learn to identify deep fakes. Don't get caught in the traps. Be super, super careful, but really set up good passwords and use two-step authentication. Information literacy. Verify your sources of where you're getting information from. Cross-reference your health and safety information. Don't take it for granted that one place is giving you all the correct information. And then there's privacy protection. Limit your data sharing. Use privacy-focused browsers. Financial security. Monitor your accounts regularly. Now that everything's in a digital age, we've got to be super careful. And educate your family on AI scams. They are all over the place now. Now, emergency preparedness. This is one of the big mitigations that we think. AI recommends a 30 to 90 day supply of essentials, food, water, medical, everything that you need for 30 to 90 days. We would start there and we would extend from there.
Okay, number 2, economic disruption and job displacement. Again, fairly high risk with medium-term impact. So the threats that we're looking at are rapid automation, eliminating jobs across multiple sectors, and we already talked just a little bit about that. We see it happening right now. Wealth concentration among AI controllers, which kind of makes sense. If they're doing this stuff, there's probably some greed involved. Economic instability from rushed AI deployment, and then supply chain disruptions.
And to me, the supply chain disruptions is one of the big ones. And so now let's move into the mitigation steps. Upskilling. Learn AI complementary skills, data analysis, creative work, caregiving, financial resilience. Build a 6-month emergency fund, which I know that is so hard, especially if you're just living paycheck to paycheck and if your job is already at risk. But do what you can to live frugally and build up an emergency plan so that if something does happen to your employment, you can be okay. And then diversify your income sources. For instance, Jonathan and I, our income comes from being content creators. This is huge risk with everything that's happening. So we need to make sure that we've diversified our income a little bit so that we've got streams of income and we're not solely dependent upon being content creators. Career planning, focus on human-centric roles that are less susceptible to automation. I love this one. Community networks. Build local trade and barter relationships. Yes, we're always saying that. And then asset protection, diversify your holdings, maintain cash reserves in multiple currencies.
Number 3, social and political instability. Again, this medium to high risk with an ongoing impact. So these threats are AI amplified polarization and social breakdown, and we're probably already seeing some of that happening.
Absolutely.
Institutional fragility and democratic erosion, civil unrest and social conflict, and authoritarian control by way of AI surveillance.
So how do we mitigate for that? Well, the first is community building. Join neighborhood groups, maintain relationships across political divides. Community, we just can't stress that enough. You've got to band together and learn to live in harmony with each other. Local resilience, support local food production, establish mutual aid networks. Information management, use multiple news sources, practice critical thinking. Civic engagement, advocate for AI safety regulations and democratic oversight. Relocation planning, assess current location risk and identify safer alternatives if needed. And this is one of the things that the AI expert we're working with is actually doing, is he is relocating. Not all of us have the funds to say, oh, okay, this is not a safe place and I can relocate. So sometimes I think we have to look a little bit deeper at that and do the best that we can with what we have and be prepared to leave, to be ready.
Another thing that I really liked in there was talking about the guardrails or what needs to happen. We can be somewhat involved in lobbying Congress and others to put in place some protections against this. This was one of the things that our friend is doing actively. And so far, he said there's been very little activity. A few people get a little bit excited, but not enough to get things going. So maybe we need to help with that. The next one is infrastructure and grid threats. Risk level is medium with very high impact. Obviously, if we're dealing with the grid, AI-powered attacks on power grids and water systems, EMP-style disruptions to communications, cascading infrastructure failures, and nuclear facility targeting.
Think about, like, the big risk here. Think about, what if the internet went down and didn't come back up? How would your life change? You know, you wouldn't be able to, how about banking? How about, you know, no more ordering anything on Amazon? How about no communication? I mean, just think about everything that you do on the internet, and if it goes down and there is no more, how are you going to handle that?
And even more severe is if the grid goes down and doesn't come back. That's even bigger. So much of what we do, almost everything that we do every day, relies on grid power.
We're not trying to freak you out here, right?
No.
We're not trying to promote fear. We're saying, okay, there's a real threat here. So let's talk about how to mitigate the infrastructure and grid threats. The first is power independence. One of the recommendations from AI was to install solar panels with battery backups. Communication backup, maintain ham radios, satellite communications. We just did a whole show on Midland products and how we can communicate within our neighborhoods just using the little FRS and GMRS radios. Great option. So go take a look at that video, but it's important we have to set all of that up now before we have supply chain disruptions. Water security, store water, learn purification methods, develop some kind of a rainwater catchment system. Water is life. You've just got to have that. And if you can't turn on your tap anymore and there's no water coming, you've got to be able to do something about that. And preparing now will make the difference. Geographic assessment. Avoid areas near critical infrastructure or military sites. Again, do the best you can. Not all of us have the ability to just move. The next one here is mobility preparedness. Maintain vehicle readiness, multiple evacuation routes. And I thought that was kind of interesting. That's all they put. But you need to be packed and ready. You need to have, you know, to be able to evacuate with 10 or 15 minutes and leave and perhaps not be able to come back, but have all of the resources that you need. You need to have planned destinations. Is somebody ready to receive you, or are you just becoming a refugee? A refugee is a very dangerous status. You've got to figure out where you're going and make sure that whoever is there to receive you is prepared to receive you.
Number 5 is biological and chemical threats. This is not something that we've had to deal much with, and it's actually a little bit scary. So let's talk about this. This is a risk level of medium with catastrophic impact. The threats: AI designed novel pathogens more deadly than natural viruses, lower barriers for non-experts to create biological weapons, and engineered pandemics with limited countermeasures.
It's so terrifying. But how do we mitigate for that? Well, first is the medical preparedness. You want to make sure that you have at least a 90-day supply of the medications that you are on or that you might need. AI also recommends the broad spectrum antibiotics. This is probably a good time to put in a plug for Jace Case. We've done several videos with them, and that's how we have these little kits that have emergency antibiotics in them, along with actually some other emergency meds. I will link to that, but it's a really good place to get emergency antibiotics where they've thought through the threats and you've got what you will probably need in the majority of events. Isolation capability, ability to seal your home, P100 respiratory protection. Health monitoring, stay informed on biological threats, maintain medical relationships. Decontamination, learn proper hygiene protocols for biological threats. And then community health, network with medical professionals and share health information. In this, I personally would add, we really need to know how we can take care of our family on our own. Think back to the COVID days and when we couldn't leave our homes. We learned a lot from that. And I don't ever want to see a repeat of that because knowledge is power. So right now we need to know where we can learn about whatever threats are out there, accurate information, and be able to do whatever we need to do to protect our family and be prepared to isolate. If that's what's necessary, we need to be able to be prepared to do that.
Number 6, existential AI risk. This one is a risk level of low in the short term, catastrophic in the long term, potentially. And the threats are super intelligent AI with misaligned values, rogue AI agents pursuing harmful objectives, and complete loss of human control over critical systems.
So the previous 5 are all things that could happen very quickly, right? The risk is an immediate threat. But this one is a little bit pushed back. So while we're going to talk about it, I would take care of the first 5 that we discussed before you worry too much and take care of this. But the way we would mitigate for this is advocacy. You need to support AI safety research organizations and regulation. But I love this one, community resilience. Over and over again, community is going to save us. It says, build strong local networks independent of technology. Get out, meet your neighbors, shake hands, share garden produce, do some front porch sitting, and learn to build your community, because that is where our strength lies. Skills development, learn manual, mechanical alternatives to digital systems. All John's backup power is fabulous, but it has its limitations. And if we can make sure that we have, for instance, my wood burning stove to keep me warm, you know what? There's a good chance that that's always going to work no matter what other systems fail. So think about mechanical alternatives to digital systems. Mental health. We learned this in COVID too. It says develop coping strategies for uncertainty and existential concerns. So when the world is falling apart around you, how do you not crumble into a little heap of tears? We want to learn how to be strong and to be able to help other people. And no matter what the craziness is that's going on around us, we've got to learn to be strong. For me personally, that is my faith in Jesus Christ and my ability to turn things over to God, no matter how bad things look, and to rely on His power and His partnership. You've got to find what it is that works for you, but I find great peace in that. And then the last one is democratic engagement. They want you to participate in AI governance discussions. And I think that is important. So there's a level where you have a little bit of influence on the public stage, but where me as a person has the most amount of influence is what I'm doing in my home, in my neighborhood, right? In my little community. So I do think they both have the place, but I have the majority of my efforts here in my little sphere of influence. Now, one of the really cool things that AI had done when I put all this in was an implementation timeline. So we're going to share that with you. But remember, we're going to be creating subsequent videos for you that will actually walk through some of these different things that we feel are important and that we are counseling our AI expert to do, and the timeline where we're going to do that. But I think that this was a really good timeline. So let's share it real quick.
Okay, let's jump in here. The immediate 0 to 30 days. Basic security, digital protection, emergency supplies, and home hardening. Number 2, information systems, reliable news sources, family communication protocols, and we've talked about communication and how important that is. Being able to communicate with, get information, but also to share information and check on family and loved ones, super important. Financial security, emergency fund start, account protection, and again, you're not going to have that emergency fund probably up and running in that 30 days, but you're going to get it started and have a plan for building it.
Yeah, so that was the first 30 days. Now let's talk about the short term, which is 1 to 6 months. These should be our goals. Skill development, AI literacy, technical skills, first aid training, anything that you can do with your hands. Infrastructure, your backup power, your communications, your water storage, your food production. Number 3 is your community building. You want to build those local networks and your mutual aid agreements. You want to make sure that you are working on that community better than you ever have before.
Okay, and the medium term, this is 6 to 24 months. Location assessment, geographic risk evaluation, possible relocation. And again, This may not be something that you can do. It may be impractical, but think about it. Advanced preparation, specialized equipment, advanced skill training, and legal and financial asset protection, estate planning, and regulatory compliance. So these are some of the things that you can do. These are a little further out. We want to start with those others, but these are also critical pieces that at some point we need to put some thought to.
Okay, now your success metrics. That was another thing. So there are preparedness benchmarks to see, okay, am I on target? What am I doing? 90-day survival capability without any external support. That should be your first goal, your first benchmark. Multiple income streams or recession-proof skills. Strong local network of 10 plus prepared families. Basic technical skills for manual alternatives. Financial assets diversified and protected. Family emergency protocols practiced regularly.
This sounds like a lot of the stuff that we go over and over and over, building our community and taking these small, steady steps to get prepared.
Yeah, so if you've been working on prepping, this is just a little, ooh, there's another threat. Let's just tweak just a little bit, let's pivot and we'll be good. Next, risk monitoring. We've got to make sure that we are always monitoring this risk and how it changes, because AI is something that we are not familiar with as a society. So monthly threat landscape assessment. Do we need to pivot? Has that threat changed? Quarterly preparedness system testing. Annual relocation and security evaluation. You might think you're okay today and it looks like you're okay where you are, but things could change and you might need to make a different decision. Ongoing community engagement and skill development.
And as part of these success metrics, we also have some key principles. One of those is balance, maintaining normal life when building resilience. And we try and emphasize that. This isn't something that we should spend all of our days thinking about and doing. We have busy lives doing great things in our communities, doing important other things, but this can be a part of that. Community, individual preparation is limited. Community survival is more likely. And again, community is just the critical piece that we're asking you to work on especially hard. Adaptability, focus on skills and systems that work across multiple scenarios. Information, stay informed, but avoid paralysis from overwhelming doom scenarios. So again, we need to stay positive. We need to look at the bright side of this, recognizing there is a problem, but staying hopeful and positive. And advocacy, personal preparation alone isn't enough. Systemic change is needed. And again, that's what our friend is trying to do. He said with very limited success, but if we're all involved in that effort, it can go better.
Absolutely can. Now, I'm going to read this conclusion because this conclusion comes right from AI, and I thought it was very, very interesting. So AI risks span from immediate cyber threats to potential existential challenges. The most probable near-term impacts involve economic disruption, social manipulation, and infrastructure vulnerabilities. While catastrophic scenarios remain low probability in the short term, their potential impact justifies reasonable preparation. Success requires balancing individual resilience with community engagement and advocacy for responsible AI development. Focus on building adaptable skills, strong relationships, and flexible preparations rather than preparing for a specific catastrophic scenario. Regular assessment is crucial as AI capabilities and risks evolve rapidly. The goal is enhanced security and resilience, not fearful isolation from technological process. We absolutely love you, and we are concerned that we have a relatively new threat that is worth evaluating this risk and mitigating specifically for it. And in this process, we all need to take care of each other. Please join us in these upcoming videos that we are doing as we consult with our AI expert. I know this is specifically for him and his family, but I think it might be a good way to kind of tune in and see where you're at in meeting your needs. And, let's just do the best that we can and take care of each other.
Now for the question of the day. Give us your thoughts about the benefits and the risks associated with AI. Any experience that you have, any thoughts that you have, drop them in the comments. Let's have some discussion and let's all learn from it. And thanks for being part of the solution.